I'm the Doctor. I'm a Time Lord. I'm from the planet Gallifrey in the constellation of Kasterborous. I'm 903 years old, and I'm the man who's going to save your lives and all 6 billion people on the planet below. You got a problem with that?
No.
In that case, hello, Z?
I get it, okay? The 10th Doctor is that good. It's that popular. That era is just that amazing. There's a reason it's called the Golden Era of Doctor Who. There's a reason why he made it into epic rap battles of history when the only other one that did was Tom Baker. In other words, it had to be the two most popular incarnations in the show's history. Okay, I get it. After Eccleston left, I think it was a very good possibility for the show to just not work. Not because Eccleston was that good, which, though he was a great Doctor, we would have been the first time we were selling the idea of regeneration to a new audience. Regeneration is something really only Doctor Who gets away with, changing your lead actor in his entirety, just have him go on as if nothing has happened. Like, really, the sort of going joke in Doctor Who is that, the lead actor changes, and everyone's sort of like, oh, he's different than he was before, but everyone else around like, yeah, it's par for the course, it's par for the course. He doesn't really seem to know, it's like, oh, look at this, and he'll have a fit for a while, like, oh, I don't like this, and like, oh, well, actually, this is much better than the old one. Or if you're the 6th Doctor, all of a sudden, whatever form you took is so much better than the last one. Russell definitely decided to up the ante here. Like, he very much used his first season with Eccleston to sort of guide the fans into the return of Doctor Who. So he's like, hey, old fans, this is what we got. We're going to go slow with it. They knew more was coming, alright? New fans going in, like, okay, so the real only threat here is the Daleks. Okay, gotcha. Next season, we got Cybermen. We got some Tarns in the next one. We got the Master. We got the Macra. We got Davros. We got Weeping Angels. We have Satan in some form. It's weird. But, yeah, it just cranks everything up to, well, we'll just say 10 in this case, because otherwise we're foreshadowing. But it really was Russell saying, alright, you all get it, right? Alright, now sit down, shut up, it's getting crazy. And it did. The Tennant era was a bit of everything for Doctor Who fans, and I think that is really why the show catapulted so far. Like, I think a lot of us, some people sort of point out what is the most popular era of Doctor Who, and it's not this era. No, it really isn't. This is possibly the most controversial era. This one, no. This one, no, it's important, but no. This one really benefited off of this one here. The combination of Russell T Davies and David Tennant, it really helped catapult Doctor Who into the era it was in. It is in now. Like that level of popularity. Again, epic rap battles of history. This really intense Time Warp musical, which is made by the fans. It is very telling how big of an impact this era has had. And so when it comes to talking about it, I think it's really more appropriate to talk about it based on the 3 strong points of their eras. Okay, so in this case, there are 4 points. Alright? And mainly because Russell is big on characters, alright? So I don't think Russell handles big plots as well as, say, Stephen Moffat. Alright, Stephen Moffat's problem is his endings. But I think his build-up is better than Russell's. At least in my opinion. But really, I think we can all agree Russell's real strength is his characters. Right, he loves his drama, he loves the interpersonal relationships that make them who they are. He really does present a lot of well fleshed out characters. Like, you don't have to like Rose, Martha, or Donna, but you at least have a good handling on their character. So let's start off with the Rose Tyler era. Alright, so the Rose Tyler years is pretty much ending off the first season with Eccleston. A lot of the characters that were there are now here, and we'll mostly see their send-offs here. really the main character here is, the main dynamic is going to be the 10th Doctor and Rose, but some shout out to Mickey and Jackie. Jackie, because really, I think her character is much better in the Tennant era, minus Love and Monsters, but whatever. But like her whole interactions with with Pete Tyler from Another Earth, her dynamic with Rose, her sort of little fun comedic moment with 10, I think is fun. I think primarily because it's just because they have that rapport already built up. To be fair for that one. Coming up on
Mickey the Idiot. Mickey the Idiot.
It's sort of hard to figure out what it is that makes Mickey work this season as opposed to last season, but actually it's not that hard. Mickey has more of an arc here. He has more of a character. Mickey's first season is designed to make him the kind of partner you would absolutely leave to go travel all of time and space with. Because I really think it's hard for happy couples, people just like those really great relationships, just go off like, yep, well, bye, and never, just no. Like, we make a lot of jokes about this relationship, but really I think we can all sort of agree if Rory ever just put his foot down and said, you know what, we just no, I think Amy would stay. She's like, you know what, yeah, that's fine. And really, Rory and Mickey have a lot in common in that they are effectively not companions. Rory is more of a companion than Mickey, but ultimately they are the plus ones. Alright? The Doctor has no intention of really asking either of them anywhere in the TARDIS. First of all, it's not his type. Not his type. Like the Doctor, you can probably count the amount of men the Doctor's traveled with before the Whittaker era on one hand. And actually, even if you count the Whittaker era, you can count the amount of interesting men the Doctor has traveled with on one hand, more than likely. But rarely do you have the plus one companion that Mickey and Rory ended up being. We'll go more into Rory next time, obviously. But with Mickey, for the longest time, it was sort of up in the air whether or not he would be in the TARDIS. In the Eccleston era, not only he constantly turned down the offer to travel in the TARDIS. First time because he was afraid, and second time, well, because he was just afraid again. And to the Ninth Doctor's credit, he did respect that decision, say, you know what, fine. And when Rose asked, like, actually no, he can't come. Like, he decided not to put Mickey out there like that. And points to the Doctor for that one. Here, though, he's ready to sort of be a bit proactive, be a bit, try to be a companion that he was never going to be. And to his credit, that did work, as in his own Cyberman story, he finds his own arc. He finds something that is special to him. And I do like that for him, especially because this story that gets him going is inspired by something from his own life. When they arrive on that parallel Earth, he meets his grandmother, or this Earth's version of his grandmother.
So that God had disappeared you?
I can't get on the stairs. I told you to get it fixed. You're gonna fall and break your neck.
Well, you get it fixed for me.
I should have done way back. I guess I'm just kind of useless.
Now, I never said that.
I am now. I'm sorry, girl. I'm so sorry.
And what I like about that is inherently his. Alright, there's no, oh, and Rose was here. Like, no, this is his story. And as small as it is, it's significant because it's something that matters just to him. And as much flack as I give the Whittaker era, or the Chibnall era, whichever one you want to call, the Chib Whittaker era, the Chib Whittaker, actually, Chib Whittaker, I like that, we'll go with that one. Chib Whittaker era does have moments where these characters have things that are inherently their own, that, don't tie into the Doctor, though the Doctor will find a way to make it about her, or at least find a way to bogart the mic in a way that isn't necessary, and I wouldn't say as a flaw of her character, but so much the writing in that one. That's one of the best things about Can You Hear Me, is that all these characters are revealed to have all these other issues that, independent of their relationship with other characters in the crew. That's so important, because your characters have to exist outside of whenever they're all together. it's the only way you can really justify having a large group. It's actually the downside of having a large TARDIS team. But anyway, coming up to Rose Tyler herself. So Rose was the first companion to have to deal with a post-regeneration Doctor. Like, she just saw Christopher Eccleston as, the Ninth Doctor, then he exploded, small explosion, into David Tennant. She's confused, she's a bit turned on, a bit flirty. This package is a bit tighter, for her. She has her yummy Doctor. And really, in my mind, it went from the more emotional mentor-mentee, surrogate father-daughter relationship to more of a romantic one. And to me, that's sort of where it gets weird, but whatever. I think for a lot of people, the relationship between Rose and the 10th Doctor is a love it or hate it thing. I think when they're played up as friends, I think it works, but also, like, the level of humor between the two in every situation, to me, is just sort of, like, unnecessary. Like, Tooth and Claw, they're just firing jokes left and right. I'm like, we're really undercutting the tension here. But, for some people it does work. And for me, where it stops working is when it's clearly a romantic subplot. It's clearly just this romance is going on here. Like, School Reunion, it works because it's played up for laughs. Also a serious conversation that the Doctor needs to have with Rose about the fact that this will not last forever. She didn't seem to get that after, but whatever. And then, of course, the epitome of it all in the Army of Ghosts story. I'm Rose Tyler. This is how I died. Come to find out, she is not dead, and I felt a bit cheated. But, to be fair, there's a lot of really great highs in the Tyler era. As lows, Fear Her. Fear Her is just really down to the fact that, bless her, the kid's trying, it's just not working. I personally don't like the Idiot's Lantern. I really don't. Love the Monsters. No, not a fan. Not a fan. But there's a lot of highs here. Again, the Cybermen return. We have the Satan Pit. We have the Army of Ghosts story, which is more Daleks and Cybermen. Girl on the Fireplace. The beginnings of Torchwood, which was really, I think, the big plot in, really, I think, the Davies era, because Russell really liked the idea of creating other universes, other shows, other properties in Doctor Who, which I think works, because it goes off with its own story. There's a reason why one of my favorite things in Big Finish is the Gallifrey series. It's not just because, despite everything I've heard, I still could not tell you more than maybe 3 things about Gallifrey. But Torchwood became its own thing, and it's interesting because it does come from the Doctor's actions. And we'll get into that when we get to the Doctor himself. Then we have the Martha Jones era. And I think the Martha Jones era gets a lot of flack, and I can see why. Because Martha is set up to be the other version of Rose Tyler in a lot of ways. So hear me out. Where Rose is set up as this young person drifting through life with no direction, and the Doctor comes and helps her, find out this whole new world to go in. Martha is someone who has a direction. She has goals. She has desires. She's pursuing them, and she meets the Doctor who shows her this other direction to go in. And the problem with that is it's bogged down by this unrequited love subplot for Martha, because Martha just spends so much time fawning over the Doctor that it just sort of gets a bit distracting and a bit cringe at times. I was like, oh god, she's making eyes at him again. Stop it. Stop. And 10 doesn't help, because while he does sort of imply some sort of limitations, it's still undercut by him being him. Because the 10th Doctor is a notorious flirt, whether he intends to or not. Let's be honest on that one. There's some good points to Martha that I think is still undercut. I think it's appropriate that her era ends with The Year That Never Was, because in a lot of ways she is the most forgotten companion of the Davies era, which is a shame, because even her audios don't generate a lot of support. She only has 2. And I still have no interest in them, because, for one reason, I don't care about Torchwood. I barely care about Unit. I have them, but I still don't care. And then she doesn't have any audios with the 10th Doctor. Like, Billy Piper came back to do audios with the 10th Doctor. Catherine Tate did audios with the 10th Doctor. We still haven't had a Martha 10 audio box, which I think she could definitely use. And that's not to say the episodes are bad. The Shakespeare Code, despite this line not aging well, although I think it aged perfectly, whatever. Then you have Daleks in Manhattan, which was a story I didn't quite like, if for no other reason than this. But there's still some merit to it. We also have the return of the Master, and I would say Captain Jack comes back, but he still doesn't have much of an arc here. And it's not his fault. It just doesn't really, do anything. A lot of people love Blink. I could take or leave Blink. Like, I don't get why people say it's a perfect jumping on point, because to me it's not. Your jumping on point should be an episode that sort of gives you the best of everything of Doctor Who, or at least a good introductory to your universe. And Blink sort of implies, hey, stuff happens, the Doctor's in the background, and he tells the story. It's nowhere near what happens. Ultimately, I think the Martha Jones era is sort of bogged down, again, by that relationship. But then you have something like Family of Blood, where I think the problem is Freema, as an actress, does not have a real lot to work on until later in her era. And by that point, the damage tends to already be done. It's very hard for characters to sort of win the fans back, unless they have a lot of really great stuff. And I think, as great as Last of the Time Lords was, and even The Sound of Drums was for her, I don't think it did it. Which, again, is a shame, because I love Freema, not just because she's... good lord. But I think there is a lot of merit to her character. And, yeah, let's also say it. She was the first, quote-unquote, companion of color. Alright? And to me, that was... It's some level, it's cool. Then we come to the Donna Noble era, which to me is the best of the 10th Doctor's era. Why? Because there's no romantic subplot. We have a very big character arc for Donna, where with Rose and Martha, we have this sort of young person sort of realizing there's a much bigger universe out there. Well, in Rose's case, she's sort of cementing herself in that bigger universe. Martha has the downside of one season and a horribly forced romantic subplot that doesn't go anywhere because it's unrequited love. With Donna, we have someone who probably should have been a companion 10, 15 years ago. And what works about that is Donna comes off as a character who has sort of lived life, a bit. She's been knocked down a bit. She isn't where she wants to be. She doesn't have a romantic partner, which she wants. She wants to be a wife and mother at some point. She does have some sort of career goals, but like Rose, she's sort of drifting through space. The idea is, though, she has a job. She's the best temp in Chiswick. But there's also the sort of idea that Donna does not think of herself as important. Like, all this stuff keeps happening around her, and to her it's like, well, it's got to be someone else, because it's not me. I'm not special. And that has led to a lot of great stories, because over the course of this, we'll see Donna help people realize their worth, like in Fires of Pompeii. But at the same time, it really is about Donna coming into her own, seeing how important she is, or accepting her importance. Also, she acts circles around most of the characters, most of the actors there. Also, this era gave us Wilfred, best boy Wilfred, love it. And of course, the return of Davros, which is actually, I think it would have been cool if it had been Wilfred versus Davros. I think that would have been fun, but it is what it is. The downside of the Donna Noble era is really just the fact that it came to an end. Russell does not like to repeat his companion exits, but he tries to make them sadder and sadder each time. So when we have Rose Tyler leaving because Rose had to get lost in another universe and there's nowhere to get her back, Martha had to stay behind because, well, her family was still traumatized from that year that never was, because they remember everything that happened, all those people that died at the hands of the Master. And with Donna, as soon as she realizes that, she has a certain worth, by becoming part-time Lord, so to me that was really weird, kind of undercut the whole thing. But he has to take that away. He has to take away all the adventures, all the fun that they had. All of Donna's growth had to be taken away from her, and it was really tragic and sad because imagine you possibly becoming the best version of yourself, and it has to be taken away from you. That is so sad, and I think it really helps set up coming into the end of time, and how Donna did become the most important woman in the universe, not just once but twice. It also speaks to what we'll see later, the impact that the Doctor has on people. Coming up to the 10th Doctor himself, I think it's very important to sort of realize where we are at New Who as opposed to other eras of Doctor Who. So as I've said before, I've always believed the idea that post-Time War, we're seeing a Doctor where each incarnation builds upon the last in a way that didn't really happen before. So Time War happens, Doctor does the thing, we're not quite sure what the thing is, but when we see the 9th Doctor, he's very much like a tight fist. He's very tightly wound. He's very closed off at the same time, too. He's very much trying to get back to a sense of normalcy, and it's through Rose Tyler that he does. And when he regenerates into this one, your yummy Doctor, he's very much set to match up better to Rose. He's younger, he sounds a bit similar to her in terms of, where they are. And that is sort of the direction we take for the Doctor's first series. Actually, if you go with the idea that behind each incarnation is just the Doctor, the original person, this incarnation is very much using Rose as a way to come out of his shell, which is great. The problem is, though, when he starts to lose Rose or lose these people, he starts to fall apart. And really, the 10th Doctor is, in the same way that the 5th Doctor was, he's the most human of the incarnations for the New Who era. Because when he loses someone, he sort of withdraws back in on himself. He sort of goes back to his 9th incarnation, traveling alone by himself, a bit distant, trying not to get involved, but at the same time, he can't quite help it. This is a Doctor that is very much caught up in all of his feelings. This is a very intense incarnation, the fact that he feels everything very intensely. Great happiness, great sadness, great anger. All of it's right there for him. And it's all because, in addition to losing Rose, we then see him deal with the Time War. In a lot of ways, I think he could deal with one after the other. At some point, he would have been ready to say goodbye to Rose, because despite all that lovey-dovey mess, it was never going to happen. I know. It sucks, but it's the reality. As he's told himself, you can be with me forever, but I can't be with you forever. Something along those lines. School Reunion, great episode, watch it. The Curse of the Time Lords. Which is not really so much of a curse, because you just not hang around humans, you just not hang around beings with a lifespan of maybe 90 years, But whatever. When the Doctor loses someone, he tends to go, again, off on his own, but he becomes a bit more detached, a bit colder. Hence we saw in Runaway Bride with the Rachnos, which was always sort of a weird thing in itself. I'm like, well, yeah, but the idea is he's a bit too closed off from the humanity of it, because it's not human. And we'll see this play up more in the 11th and 12th incarnation, the sort of inhumanity to the Doctor. When he's with Martha, we do see him attempt to get back to a sense of normalcy, but he is sort of holding back. He's, again, no longer talking about the Time War. He's no longer talking about anything, really, but he does mention one thing constantly: Rose. Rose is the driving factor in his life. And it's sweet, but it's also a bit unhealthy, because it seems a lot of his decisions are based off of someone who's no longer with him. So he's either mourning, which is sad, or he's obsessed. And with Martha, like we said before, Martha does get the short end of the stick here, because she's constantly being compared to Rose, and it's not fair to her, but it's also not fair to the Doctor that he can't quite seem to move past, and he's moving himself too far back. What's interesting is that as he's trying to sort of move forward, the past keeps coming back. So when he had Rose, during his time with Rose, we saw the return of Sarah Jane. Sarah Jane, who made the Doctor remember that, hey, he's left people behind, or rather, he's known he had to leave people behind, because they will wither and die long before he will. And it's too painful. He can never look back. This is something that's consistent with pretty much every incarnation. Why the Doctor never goes back. They can't. It's too painful. We saw the return of the Cybermen. So that was a big deal for the Doctor, as well as the Daleks. These were all things that when they came back, dealt a blow to the Doctor on some level. The Daleks and the Cybermen cost him Rose. The return of Sarah Jane, while not her own actions, the Krillitane tempted the Doctor to try to make things go back to the way they were. And Sarah Jane was able to help pull him back. Also an emphasis on not just Sarah Jane's importance, but the importance of the companion in general, that they keep the Doctor grounded. During the Martha Jones era, he went through a lot. Namely, not just the fact that he had to once again open up about the Time War again, which is probably never going to not be painful for him, especially in this incarnation, but he also had a period where he was human. And he was able to live a normal life, free of the Time War, free of Daleks, Sontarans, Cybermen, and whatnot. In a lot of ways he was happy, but he also had to not be himself. And even more so when Dr. Smith is faced with the reality of the Doctor, he's frightened of him. And I think that says a lot about the Doctor himself, as well as what the 12th Doctor says. The Doctor doesn't really exist, not really a person. It's an idea, and it's a frightening idea to him. And then, of course, we have the return of other Time Lords in Utopia, Sound of Drums, and The Last of the Time Lords. And it couldn't just be any Time Lord. It had to be the Master, his greatest enemy and his former best friend. So he's a whirlwind of emotions here. Like he what he really wants is to just hopefully put it all behind him. Like, hey, you know what? We're the only two that are left, so let's just travel throughout all of time and space. Alright, you and me, like we always wanted to do, but at the same time, he can't let the Master go through with his plans. And I really think the conflict should have been brought up a bit more as to exactly what the Doctor is going to do. And maybe it is brought up there, but I think it could have been used better. Might just be my issues with Sim's Master. I don't know. But at the end of it, not only does he lose his only connection to Gallifrey and another Time Lord, Martha has to stay behind because of the year that never was, still having an effect on her family. And so then he's fortunately able to meet Donna Noble. But the damage has been done to some level, that the Doctor can't go back to being who he was when he was traveling with Rose. And while he doesn't want to admit it, that's a good thing. Alright, because he was too close to Rose. He was too close, and he tried to be... he tried to replicate that with Martha in his own way, while at the same time not acknowledging that, Martha couldn't replace Rose, while constantly telling Martha that she could never match up to Rose. With Donna, there's no romantic subplot. He even said himself, he just wants a friend. He just wants a mate. And Donna is the perfect friend for him, because she sort of she fires back in a more aggressive and louder way than he's used to. He's used to people sort of hearing what he says and following it. Donna's not playing that. And that leads to some great comedy between the two of them. He can be a bit more open. Doesn't have to try to always sound cool, which I think he always does like to do. And she keeps him grounded. By this point, the Doctor is slowly encroaching upon the point of becoming the Time Lord victorious. And we'll get to that in a second. But in this era, he suffers another loss. Actually, he suffers his greatest of losses. The first loss he has is the loss of his daughter, Jenny, which personally I didn't care about. The only good thing really about the Doctor's daughter is that, hey, it turns out those two hooked up. So yeah, that's great. But that's a blow for the Doctor. You could also go into Silence in the Library. The loss of and mystery of River Song, Stephen Moffat's greatest and most confusing mystery box until Clara Oswald. But we'll also see the return of Davros, and this mirror being reflected back on the Doctor, as the Doctor realizes the impact he's had on the lives of people. He's forced these good people to take up arms, being willing to sacrifice themselves, the planet, to stop an enemy. And as Davros says here,
the man who abhors violence, never carrying a gun. But this is the truth, Doctor. You take ordinary people and you fashion them into weapons. Behold your children of time transformed into murderers. I made the Daleks, Doctor. You made this. They're trying to help. Already I have seen them sacrifice today for their beloved doctor. The Earthwoman who fell opening the subwave network.
Who was that?
Harriet Jones. She gave her life to get you here.
How many more? Just think how many have died in your name.
Then he has to lose Donna. Well, before he loses Donna, he has to say goodbye to he has to say goodbye to Rose again. Then he watches all of his friends go off. They don't need him anymore. And he's happy about that, but at the same time, he does feel a bit lonely, and now he has to forcibly say goodbye to Donna, as he has to lock away the Time Lord persona in her to keep her alive. And not only that, she has to forget everything they've gone through. He has to say goodbye to his best friend, as he just said goodbye to the woman he loved. The woman he thought he loved, but whatever. So now we come to the Time Lord victorious, courtesy of Waters of Mars. So, in the Waters of Mars, the Doctor sort of has a mental breakdown. It's what you could call it being nice, but in reality, he just sort of undergoes one huge character regression with the idea that he gets to determine how the laws of time and space operate. Alright, he is the winner of the Time War. Alright, and the laws of time will obey him. And so he effectively undoes a horrible fixed point. That fixed points are these things where you have to let them happen. We saw this in Fires of Pompeii, where the Doctor says, hey, Mount Vesuvius has to happen. Alright, so everyone has to die. Donna's able to convince him to, hey, you don't have to, you can save someone. And now here, he breaks a fixed point, and it sort of becomes the idea of who should have this power. And when I say he's becoming more like a Time Lord, he's viewing this as a matter of past and future. The Doctor has always been someone that lives in the present and loves the past and the future. He loves traveling through, seeing how things come to be, seeing how things will be, and then realizing, hey, it is what it is, and it's fun. But the Time Lords were always these custodians. They kept on high like monks, and they viewed everything with a sort of very cold, calculating nature. And we'll see the 10th Doctor do this again in the End of Time when he questions Wilfred, flat out saying, like, you're not important, you're not special, you're not powerful. It's a very calculating and cruel thing for the Doctor to say, for characters always say that no one's unimportant, no one's not special. He's viewing this on the impact that Wilfred has had in the past and the impact he will have in the future, and realizes it's nothing significant. If you will listen to an audio, I want you to listen to Neverland and hear how Vansel Ostafosius talks about Charlotte Pollard and the fact that ultimately the human girl meant nothing. Alright, her descendants will be nothing. They will never grow to create a cure or start a war. They will do nothing of any importance. The Doctor himself would buckles at this idea. Everyone's important because they're here, right now. But here, because he's been traveling on his own so long, he's becoming more like the Time Lords he left Gallifrey for. And at the end of time, we see him also be stuck with another regression, his mortality. A lot of people tend to forget that this incarnation only lived 3 years. Within the confines of its own universe, he only aged 3 years. And he lived those 3 years so intensely. It makes a lot of sense when he said this in Lazarus Experiment.
Doesn't work like that. Some people live more in 20 years than others do in 80. It's not the time that matters, it's the person.
But it's even more tragic when you realize that at the end of time, he says this.
Just leave me. I'm an old man, Doctor. I've had my time.
Well, exactly. Look at you. Not remotely important. But me? I could do so much more. So much more! But this is what I get. My reward. But it's not fair! Lived too long.
No.
He's hit his rock bottom, his lowest point, which was already preluded to in the beginning of the End of Time. And so now, realizing he's gone too far, that even though it's only been 3 years, he's lived too long. He's lived too hard, too fast. He's let the years weigh him down. And I think ultimately this is what sets up the 11th Doctor's incarnation. The events of the parting of the ways of Stolen Earth, seeing the damage done by his actions, the deposing of Harriet Jones leading to the events of Harold Saxon, aka the Master, taking over, all those people whose lives have been ruined by his actions. You know what? Play the Marion Conspiracy clip again.
What would you say if I were to tell you that I once destroyed an entire race? That I have led friends to their deaths and caused numerous wars? That my intervention has led to peaceful races taking up arms and good people having their faith or reason destroyed? Because I failed to act, millions upon millions of people have been enslaved or killed. What if I had done all those things, but had always believed I was doing the right thing?
This will once again play up the role of this incarnation going into his next one. The 10th Doctor is really is like fire and ice, in the fact that he can only be so hot it burns, or so cold it freezes. That is his character, and I think in a lot of ways, as cool as the Doctor is, he really is sort of hiding this idea that he is messed up in some ways. And it makes him a fascinating character. All the high points, all the low points, that is the 10th Doctor's era. Behind Russell T Davies, I think he's writing at his best. There's a reason why David Tennant and Russell T Davies are coming back, alright? Because this is the golden age of New Who. So what are the gems of this era? Because there's always some gems. So, for me, I would have to say Christmas Invasion, definitely. New Earth, Tooth and Claw, that one grew on me. The Impossible Planet, the Satan Pit, really cool. Cosmic Horrors, love it. The Age of Steel, definitely. School Reunion for the Queen, Sarah Jane Smith. The Girl in the Fireplace, a great episode by Stephen Moffat. I Would Risk It All for Madame de Pompadour too. That's right, I said it. Army of Ghosts is alright. I really don't like the whole I'm Rose Tyler, this is how I died. Felt a bit cringe. Smith and Jones, I think, did a great job setting it up. The Shakespeare Code is fun. Gridlock's fun. It grows on you. I didn't quite think I would like Evolution of the Daleks, coming back on it, primarily because of this. There's some fun ideas to it that I think are worthy of being explored again. The Utopia sound of drums thing, not my thing. Not really me. Human Nature, Family of Blood. Before that, I love that, like that a bit more. Partners in Crime, really fun. Fires of Pompeii. Hey, Peter Capaldi, the 12th Doctor. Hey, look. He's trolling himself. Planet of the Ood is uncomfortable science fiction, aka the best kind of science fiction, presenting new ideas. Turn Left is emotional, it's frightening, it's great. Catherine Tate, like David Tennant and Family of Blood, gets to act his ass off, so it's great. The Stolen Earth, Parting of the Ways story, great. Davros is always a treasure. Then you have, really, it's kind of it. Like, the specials afterwards are alright, but they're not really great. They sort of fall into the rule of cool problem that this incarnation has, where we'll say a lot of fancy stuff, and then you realize it doesn't mean anything. And really, the forgettable stuff, we all kind of know it. Fear Her, Love and Monsters. Blink, I'll say Blink is kind of overrated. It's a great Weeping Angel story, but that's kind of it. There are better ones. The Idiot's Lantern, I personally don't like. Sky's the limit. 45. Yeah, Chris Chibnall tried to warn us that he was a bad choice for showrunner. But anyway, that's sort of it. Anyway, with that in mind, let's bring us to a close. If you're new to the Bug Thing, feel free to like, comment, share, subscribe. Do all those fun algorithmy things, and I'll see you all next time for my favorite personal incarnation, the 11th Doctor. This is the Bug Thing signing off. Thanks for watching. As always, may your fandom serve you well.
I don't want to go.